Welcome to the Explainer. I think a lot of us have looked out the window during a bitter, freezing blizzard and just wished we could crawl back under the covers and sleep until spring. But what if we actually could? What if we pulled off the ultimate biological rewrite and completely redesigned the human body for hibernation? Well, as you're about to see, it is way, way harder than you might think. Let's really dive into this. It's the ultimate cozy fantasy, right? Simply skipping the freezing, dark winter months entirely. No shoveling snow, no crazy heating bills, just climbing into a nice, temperature-controlled bed in November and literally not opening your eyes again until April. It sounds like absolute bliss. But what would it actually physically take for our fragile human bodies to survive that? Well, first off, we have to shatter a massive misconception. Hibernation is absolutely not sleep. Instead, animals enter a state called torpor. And torpor is brutal. It's an active, highly regulated shutdown of your biological processes. We're talking near-death suspended animation here. You aren't just taking a long nap. You are hitting pause on almost every major system in your entire body. Just think about the extremes of torpor for a second. Normal human sleep keeps your heart ticking at a nice, steady 70 beats per minute and your body at a toasty 37 degrees Celsius. But hibernation? That plunges you into sub-zero temperatures with a pulse of just 3 beats per minute. Breathe. If a normal, unevolved human tried this today, we wouldn't last minutes. So to survive, our entire cardiovascular system needs a total ground-up rewrite. And that starts with a heart that can somehow function perfectly at a sluggish 4 beats per minute. But dropping your heart rate that low while your core temp is practically freezing introduces a massive, literally deadly obstacle for the human heart. Biologists actually call this the calcium problem. See, normal human hearts, exposed to extreme cold, suffer from clogged calcium pumps, and that leads to stiffening and eventually fatal chaotic spasms. So if we were going to evolve into hibernators, our cells would literally need built-in antifreeze. That's the only way to keep those calcium channels wide open and pumping, making sure the heart doesn't just go into fatal fibrillation. But wait, a heart beating just 4 times a minute creates a whole other deadly issue. At that speed, our sluggish blood would naturally pool and turn into a solid jelly. There's no way around it, so we'd have to constantly pump out massive amounts of natural anticoagulants all winter long. Our blood would need to become incredibly thin to prevent fatal clotting. And then, in this brilliant evolutionary magic trick, our liver would have to instantly shut those thinners off the exact moment we wake up, just so we wouldn't bleed out from a tiny scratch. All right, so the heart and blood are secure, but what about your skeleton? I mean, you'd think lying perfectly still for 5 months straight would completely dissolve your bones, kind of like an astronaut in deep space. But thanks to specialized hormones, like one called CART, your body would go into a metabolic lock. It acts like a genetic switch that completely pauses bone remodeling. It preserves every single ounce of your bone density without you having to move a single inch. And to preserve our muscles alongside those bones? This is wild. We would literally feed them with our own recycled metabolic waste. Yep. Instead of urinating, our shutdown kidneys would send toxic urea straight to our gut. Down there, a highly specialized microbiome would break it down, grab the nitrogen, and recycle it right back into our system to rebuild our amino acids. It's the ultimate built-in closed-loop recycling program. Now, to power this crazy winter survival system, we would need a tremendous amount of fuel. As summer fades, our thyroids would slow down, and bam, we'd get hit with hyperphagia. This is an intense, hormonally driven, totally insatiable hunger. It's literally designed to compel us to consume thousands of extra calories every single day. And we're not just talking about gaining a few holiday pounds here. The average adult human would need to crank up their total body weight by a staggering 30 to 40% before crawling into their winter den. Our entire physical silhouette would completely change just to store enough fuel. All those extra calories, they'd be stored very specifically as thick layers of brown adipose tissue, mostly packed right around our vital organs. And unlike regular white fat, this brown fat is loaded with mitochondria. During the deep freeze, it slowly simmers. It burns stored energy to act like a magical internal furnace, keeping our core warm without us ever having to waste energy shivering. Okay, moving up to the brain, things get even wilder. To save energy, your delicate neural connections would actually detach from each other. It's a process called synaptic regression. Your brain activity would basically flatline.
But don't worry, you wouldn't wake up having lost your memories or your personality, because your brain would flood itself with cold shock proteins. These act like a biological shield, locking down and protecting those core neural pathways until they can safely regrow in the spring. But here is the most absolute mind-bending paradox of the whole shebang. Because torpor is so profoundly cold, it completely prevents the brain from generating restorative, deep brain waves. So while you are totally unconscious and practically frozen stiff, you're actually becoming severely sleep-deprived for months on end. Which means your winter wouldn't be one long peaceful dream. It would actually be a totally exhausting cycle. Because of that massive building sleep debt, your body would be forced to burn precious energy to spontaneously warm itself up every 2 weeks. You'd wake up feeling completely exhausted just to get a single day of actual normal sleep, and then you'd plunge right back into freezing torpor all over again. Okay, now for a very practical, maybe slightly gross question. How on earth do you go 5 months without a bathroom break? Well, because our kidneys are essentially shut off and our intestines shrink down by like 90% to save energy, our bodies would absorb all the moisture from our lower gut to create a fecal plug. Yeah, it's a literal biological cork that safely seals off the entire digestive tract for the winter. So, if you look at the whole year, this totally transformed physical reality would deeply divide human culture. Think about it. We'd spend our summers lean, active, and athletic. By September, hyperphagia kicks in and bulks us up heavily with all that brown fat. Then, come November, we lock ourselves away in suspended animation, completely shutting down until April brings us back to the surface. And let me tell you, when April finally arrives, it is definitely not a gentle morning stretch. Waking up is the most violent, energy-intensive metabolic shock imaginable. Your brain suddenly dumps a massive adrenaline surge straight into your blood, which ignites your brown fat like gasoline. Your blood vessels constrict to warm just the heart and brain first, and then comes the violent, full-body shivering. You'd burn more calories in a 2-hour wake-up than if you had just run a full marathon. If our biology really looked like this, our entire human civilization would warp around it. We'd split the year into 2 massive cultural eras. You'd have 6 months of hyper-productive mania, where we're working 24/7, building rapidly, throwing intense eating festivals, the whole fattening up phase, and then 6 months of absolute global silence. Stock markets freeze, factories shut down, and entire families share these automated, climate-controlled sleep dens. Now, of course, the world can't just run itself while billions of people are knocked out. Society would have to rely on a select few who volunteer to stay awake in the cold, just to keep the power grids from failing. We'd likely have this highly respected class of rotating workers, let's call them the guardians, who delay their own hibernation to maintain global infrastructure while the rest of humanity gets some rest. Now, while this whole thing seems like a super fun sci-fi thought experiment, science is actually actively studying these exact biological mechanisms right now. I mean, if we can crack the code of hibernation, we could completely revolutionize human medicine. We're talking about curing osteoporosis, preventing muscle-wasting diseases, unlocking totally new Alzheimer's therapies, and even inducing the synthetic torpor we'd absolutely need to send humans on deep space travel to Mars. So, we might not be packing on brown fat or forming fecal plugs just yet, but let me ask you this. Knowing the absolute brutal extremes your body would have to endure, the near-freezing temperatures, the locked bones, that insanely violent spring wake-up, if you could trade the winter blues for 5 months of suspended animation, would you actually do it?
Please like and subscribe.